There are two aspects in the art of coaching gymnastics that encapsulates everything else. The two aspects are what I call directional words and effort correlation. When you understand the impact that the directional words have and effort correlation has, you basically get everything else. So let's break this down. Directional words. Directional words is when you're talking to your athlete, you're always speaking about how do I get from the past into the present and take the present and push it into the future. Oftentimes, a lot of frustration happens in the coaching-athlete relationship because the coach is identifying a problem and now they're talking about the past. So the athlete does a skill and they say, don't bend your legs, right? That's past thinking. So the athlete just did the skill is now in the past, and now we're talking about the past. Instead of future tense, thinking about the future, which is next time you go, make sure your legs are straight. So that's future driven. And the problem here is because psychologically, depression is often past thinking, and anxiety is driven from usually a not feeling in control of the future. Like the future's coming to you, this unknown's coming to you, and you don't feel capable of taking it on. And so you get anxious. And so when you're using past driven directions, you're actually setting psychologically, I believe, your athlete up to have depression or anxiety. But when you're thinking future and you're using directional words towards the future, you're actually preparing your athlete to become mentally more capable, mentally confident, emotionally more confident, because they're always thinking about how the next turn can improve, the next turn can be better, and how the next turn builds into their foundation, essentially. So directional words, how do I get you from the past into the present and from the present into the future? Another example would be you have an athlete who may not be performing very well. And the question you ask them is future thought, like, well, what are you trying to achieve today? What are we trying to achieve today? Whatever you've achieved up to this point, we can't change, so I have no control over that. So the question is, what do I have left in the day, and what do I have control over today, and what am I trying to achieve? And now I take the athlete out of their present, oh, life is hard, I don't like anything, to what do I have control over and what can I do about it? Future thought, future driven, directional. Athlete goes to an event, they're struggling, let's just say beam, they're falling off beam, whatever, beam's not happening the way they want it to happen, they're frustrated, now they have to rotate to the new event. They're bringing their negative emotions into that new event. How are you going to get them to put in the effort they need on the new event that they've rotated to when they've got this negative energy that hasn't left them? The past is being brought into the present. You can't have it. You got to address the past, to get rid of the past so that you can stay present, because here's the thing, your effort is going to be dictated by your emotional energy. Like people in a bad attitude or a bad mood are not going to perform as well as people who are just happy, comfortable. People who are excited are going to even perform like even better. But if we just get to like copacetic, are you just amicable essentially to work with? You had a bad event. Now we need to address what can you do about that? Nothing. Now I can offer future solutions about it. Like, could you do a better job tomorrow? Okay, that's future driven, kind of far away. Could you go back to the event? Like maybe you can finish your assignments faster today, that you could go back to the event and get back what you wanted. Maybe there's nothing you can do to solve it, but something you can do on this event that will build the confidence or the capabilities you need to help you correlate on the other event. But either way, we need to acknowledge the past so that we can get rid of the emotion that's getting brought into the present, because that emotion that's being brought into the present is going to dictate and control our future. And so, directional words. You got to think about, where are my words pointing you in the frame of reference of perspective? Because if my words are pointing you into the past, how can we move into the future? And so that's one aspect of how I personally speak to athletes, is where are we going? I don't care about the mistakes. I don't care about the problems. Where are we going? And then what do we need to do to change our point of reference into what we want to go? And that's it. Directional words. Effort correlation. Effort correlation I see as being something that really gets lost when you think about drills, progressions, steps. Effort correlation is essentially understanding that whatever surface you can do max effort on, I can take that effort and I can correlate it to another surface. But effort correlation has a rule. If I can, let's just take trampoline, for example. If I can jump as high as I possibly can on the trampoline, an easy surface that assists me to jump higher, and I can jump as high as I possibly can on the trampoline. If I take that effort and I put it on the tumble track, I correlate that effort to the tumble track or the floor, I'm not going to jump as high because the surface change requires even more effort. So, effort correlation looks like this. If I'm on an easy surface at max effort and I go to a surface that requires more effort, that max effort I produced is going to decrease. And because it's going to decrease, the question I have to ask myself essentially is, what do I need on that harder surface? So, I'm trying to build a picture here that makes things make more sense. If I'm learning a back handspring on the floor, how much effort do I need to produce that back handspring on the floor? What you often will see is somebody who's struggling learning that back handspring on the floor does not produce more effort when they go to a tumble track, or does not produce more effort when they go to a trampoline, because they don't even know how to max effort the trampoline. And so when you when you go through the correlation in the other direction of more difficult, challenging surfaces to easier surfaces, oftentimes you will find when somebody is struggling, their effort does not increase when you make the surfaces easier. And so by doing that, you understand that they have an effort correlation problem. So what I personally do, and I believe in this wholeheartedly, is you start with the easiest surface first and you max effort your ability on that surface. In fact, you take the potentiality of that person so far on the easier surface so that when you're ready to correlate the effort, they're more capable. Their capabilities are greater than what the more challenging surface is going to ask a person to do. We'll take vault as a good, clear example. Do I teach Yurchenkos on vault? I'm a proponent of saying no. I don't teach Yurchenkos on vault. Because to me, a Yurchenko is a double layout. So if I go to the tumble track and I can double layout off the tumble track into a loose foam pit, Yurchenkos are not going to be a problem. So I can effort correlate. Versus if I go to the vault table and I start teaching all the drills for Yurchenkos and the cartwheels and the round-offs and drill this and drill that, how long am I going to have to drill Yurchenkos compared to how long is it going to take me to teach this person to do a double layout? I believe I can take a person and teach them the double layout off of a tumble track far faster than you will be able to take a person and go from Yurchenko, basic level drill Yurchenko, into laid out Yurchenko over the vault table. And you're going to say, well, Raleigh, I don't need a laid out Yurchenko. Maybe I need a tucked Yurchenko. Right, but how are you going to convert that tuck into a layout? And how much time is it going to take? And so this becomes an effort correlation problem. Because vault, and I'm going to throw this in there, controversy, but we're talking about women's gymnastics, mostly on my channel is women's gymnastics. You don't need to block like you think you need to block. Most people do not need to block the way that it is explained, okay? I understand the purpose of block, but your arms are not the strongest part of your body, your legs are. And so yes, there's a block action that happens, but that gets so hyper-focused on that everyone forgets about the run, the punch, the ability to rotate and create flip, the ability to use your legs. And so it's like, it should be 75%, maybe 80% lower body doing the work, and then 20% upper body. How can I get my lower body to effort correlate? Well, I don't know. Tumble ridiculously hard on the tumble track, and then take your ability to tumble ridiculously well on the tumble track and correlate it to vault. You get these questions like, on these, Facebook forums, or if you're part of Reddit groups or whatever, and it's like, you get that classic question of like, how do I get this kid's front handspring over the vault table better? And you ask the question, you're like, well, can they do a front layout over the vault table? And 99% of the time, it's like, no. Like any kid who's struggling to front handspring over the vault table is not going to be able to front layout over it. But front layouting over the vault table would imply I have the ability to produce enough effort that when I block, everything will just happen even better. But if I can't even produce the effort, then that becomes the effort correlation problem, is you don't have anything to correlate the effort from. And so you cannot, and I've not seen this. Prove me wrong. I would love someone to prove me wrong, but I have not seen this. You cannot teach a skill and produce max effort in the process of teaching the skill. When you are learning a skill, you are correlating the effort that you can produce from some other event. We'll take another example, back handspring on beam. When an athlete is learning a back handspring on beam, there's so many nerves and uncertainty going on that, okay, you ask that person again, effort correlation problem. You go, okay, so I'm going to learn how to produce the effort I need on that back handspring on the beam while I'm learning the back handspring on the beam. And so you get all these nuances in the coaching, like, jump this way, throw your arms this way, do more of this. It's all effort driven, essentially. Well, all those corrections usually are just effort driven because the athlete's just scared and their effort decreases. Like with fear, effort decreases. And so all the corrections usually on a back handspring on beam become effort driven. Try harder, jump more, move your hips this way, blah, blah, blah. It's usually effort driven. Don't go crooked. That's still an effort problem. Take that athlete, put them on floor and ask them what their back handspring looks like. And I guarantee you that an athlete who is struggling with a back handspring on high beam probably cannot do a back handspring layout step out on floor. Effort correlation. Now, they might be able to do a back handspring on floor as well as they possibly can, and really nice, beautiful back handspring on floor. But the problem is that the back handspring on the beam requires even more effort because there's an emotional element to it, that they can't just correlate the effort itself because psychologically, there's actually more effort required. Well, you can't get the psychological effort when you go to the floor because you're not going to miss the floor. So the psychological effort that's required for the high beam is removed when you go to the floor. So you need to, again, go to an easier surface and increase the amount of effort required physically, mentally, and emotionally. You need to increase the amount of effort. So what do? You go to the floor and you do back handspring, layout, step out. Heck, do layout, step out connected. You get an athlete who can layout, step out, connect on the floor. They're not going to have a problem producing effort on the beam when it comes to a single back handspring. Floor is easier, and this is what happens. So we teach skills on beam, I'm saying we collectively in a very blanketed statement because most people struggle with coaching the skills, okay? There's a very small group of people who are very successful, and these people understand this. So I'm not speaking to you. I'm speaking to people who need to understand the art of coaching, not people who've already got it figured out, right? Okay, it's very, very common for new coaches or coaches who are struggling to teach skills in parallel to their events. What I mean is I'm got a back walk over on floor and I'm learning a back walk over on beam. I've got my back handspring step out on floor and I'm learning it on the beam. And they're matching the effort required on all the surfaces. That's where you mess up. You should not be teaching beam skills on beam. You should be teaching beam skills on floor, surpassing whatever it is you're going to be doing on beam. Like, you should have layout step outs, side aerials, standing front tuck essentially, standing back tuck, up panel mats on floor. You could have those things on floor before you even worry about anything on beam. Like you got kids working handstands on a beam and you're like fixing however many weeks, months, days, years working handstands on a beam when that kid could still be on the floor getting a standing back tuck. This is the problem in gymnastics. Is what happened is we watered down the effort required to compete, that then the training methodology followed the competitive idea. The reason why the competitive levels got watered down, it was to increase the amount of participants in the sport. But what happened was the training methodology also followed those ideas, and then people struggled. So what am I implying? I'm saying if I'm going to go to beam and actually teach beam, I'm actually going to go to floor and get as much effort on floor as I possibly can, knowing that that effort is going to decrease when I go to beam. So I don't want to teach handstands on beam to a kid who can't even do a cartwheel on a floor line because I need more effort out of them someplace else. So I know that they'll actually try harder. Last case in point, I have never seen an athlete who can do a correct layout on a trampoline struggle to do a back tuck on a trampoline. So this means that when you can do more challenging skills that require more effort, more emotional engagement, more mental engagement, it correlates to things that are easier to do or things that require less effort, skills. So that's the point. You push the effort, max effort you can possibly do on an easy surface. So knowing that the effort will decrease when I go to a harder surface, you push the skill difficulty on the easy surface, knowing that the skill I'm trying to get on the harder surface, more difficult surface, is going to be less than. I want a double back tuck on a trampoline because I'm only trying to get a back layout on the floor, right? Something like that. And that's a pretty extreme example, but something like that is the idea. So effort correlation, directional words. To me, this encapsulates the decision making that is going on in why we want to do what we do. This is the reason why I believe, and I don't know what the TOPS program looks like now, but with the TOPS program, and you had those basically strength exercises, right? It's like, can you hold a handstand for a minute on the floor? Can you do a stall or press to handstand? Can you do your rope climbs without your legs? You take those, and then you have the leg lifts going on. I don't know what the version is now that they do leg lifts, but it's like 20 leg lifts or something like that. It's like, these were all physical questions. Like, can you physically produce this amount of effort and energy? Those 4 things, rope climbs, stall to press to handstand, static handstand, and leg lifts, I mean, if you can do those 4 things, bars is just literally easier for you. Not even, like, if I can stall to press to handstand, right? Do you think cast to handstands becomes a problem? Not really. If I can rope climb without using my legs 3 times in a row with, like, is my upper body strength strong enough to handle what bars requires of me? Yeah, probably. If I can do 20 leg lifts in a row, do you think I have the core strength to be able to handle what bars is going to ask of me? Do you think if I can hold a static handstand for a minute, I'm psychologically, mentally engaged on the little things, that what bars asks of me on the little things, I will actually do because I can actually stay present with my body for a minute? Because that's what a static handstand is for a minute. It's being present with your body, in tune with your body for a minute. Is there any event that you need to hold a handstand for a minute? No. So the idea of holding a static handstand for a minute is not because the events physically require a minute-long handstand. You don't need that. The minute-long handstand lets you know that the person can stay present with their body. It's more psychological and mental than it is physical. No one needs the physicality, but to stand there for a minute on your hands is a psychological thing. So it's an effort correlation from a very mental and emotional aspect, which has been lost in the sport. Directional words, effort correlation. You start perceiving all your decisions around that, and I guarantee you'll start realizing your decisions make a lot more sense. Your yeses and your nos of why you do things will start to basically build themselves properly, and you'll start to realize that when you're plateauing, it's because you're living outside of that. Your plateau in your athletes is coming because your directional words are not actually pushing them in the right direction, or because your effort correlation is actually capping them out because you're not using effort correlation and you're not building that. And that's the reason why they're plateauing. So those are the 2 big buckets you can kind of stick everything as. Now, maybe there's more. Leave that in the comments and let me know if you think that there's more than just those 2. But I believe that you can stick everything, for the most part, that I can think of inside of those 2 big buckets, and you're going to encapsulate the majority of what coaching really looks like. And just bonus feature, it is so much easier to talk to parents who are disgruntled with those 2 things. So much easier. Because if you're talking about how you're taking their child from the past to the present to the future, that's what they're paying you for. So it's very easy to say, hey, this is what they're doing and this is where we're trying to go. That's a better conversation to have than this is what the past looks like and they need to stop doing whatever's in the past. Oh, well, it's just not happening. The other thing is when an athlete is struggling with fear or they're plateauing, effort correlation solves that conversation with parents. Well, of course they're struggling. Look at the effort correlation problem. Of course they can't do that double back handspring on beam. They don't even have floor good enough to correlate the effort needed for what beam happens. Well, why don't they have the floor? Well, I tell them to do their floor assignment, but they roll their eyes, they stomp their feet, and they don't want to go to floor and improve their floor because they're being stubborn and greedy for that double back handspring on high beam, so they're not making their floor better. Well, I can't correlate the effort they don't have. Right? I'm not a magician. And so it's much more rooted in data effort correlation data than just coaches' feelings and opinions or what athletes want to do, right? And the accountability feedback loop is automatically built in there, because when someone cannot do something, you can just literally go effort correlation problem, go back and do something else and show me that you actually can produce the effort before you come back over here to try. Again, if you're having an attitude issue, then the question is always, well, are you who you need to be right now for who you want to become in the future? Because if I'm having an attitude problem with what's happening right now, is that who I want to be in the future? Is that version of myself going to become and take me where I want to go? And the answer is no, it's not. It's not going to take you where you want to go. So it's a directional word problem. So these things solve a lot of the resistance that's happening within the coach-athlete relationship. Hope you find that helpful. Leave a comment, like, subscribe, share this with your friends. It encourages me to keep making more videos if you find these videos helpful. If not, be like, down thumb me and be like, your videos suck, stop making them. That's encouraging too, because sometimes that's just fun to get negative feedback, because any feedback is great. Have a great one. Bye.